Konnichiwa, minasan. O genki desu ka? Welcome to my channel. Let's learn Japanese with Eric. If you would like to learn Japanese for work, travel, or simply personal interest, please subscribe to my channel and watch the videos in chronological order. All lessons are written in both English and Japanese, so if you read Japanese, you can follow along reading the hiragana alphabet. If you haven't learned the hiragana yet, you can learn them all in one afternoon by going through lessons 1, 2, and 3. Otherwise, you're perfectly fine following along using the English transliteration. So let's begin. Hajimemashou. In this lesson, we learn how to express the existence of things. For this, we use two verbs. The verb imasu indicates the existence of people and animals, while the verb arimasu indicates the existence of things. Although plants are living, they're classified together with things, and so the existence of plants also uses the verb arimasu. In this lesson, we learn how to express the existence of people, animals, and things, how to express their location, how to express ownership of animals and things, how to express the parts of a whole, how to express the existence of events and their location. In the next slide, we will review some important points about the Japanese language and its grammar. Before we go further, I'd like to point out a few things about the Japanese language, and some of them make Japanese an easier language to learn than, say, English, Spanish, or French. The sentence structure is generally subject, object, verb. Sentences always end with a verb, unlike in English, which is subject, verb, object. So no matter what you do in Japanese, the last thing you say is always the verb. The subject is often omitted because the language has the concept of a topic. Once the topic is set, all succeeding sentences refer to that topic as the subject, so it doesn't have to be said again, unless the topic is once again changed. It's similar to Spanish, but in Spanish, the subject is built onto the verb conjugation. Unlike in English, there is no requirement for subject-verb agreement in terms of singular or plural. In English, a singular subject needs a singular verb, and a plural subject needs a plural verb. There's no such requirement in Japanese. Whether a noun is singular or plural in Japanese depends on context or if the speaker uses a quantifier. Unlike in Spanish or French, nouns and adjectives do not have gender. There's no such thing as masculine or feminine nouns or adjectives. There are basically just two tenses, the past and the non-past. The future tense is indicated by using the non-past tense plus the use of a time expression, such as tomorrow, next week, next year. This is in contrast to English, which has 3, past, present, and future, with 4 aspects each, for a total of 12 tenses, and Spanish, which has the 7 simple tenses and 7 complex tenses for a total of 14. The Japanese period at the end of the sentence is a circle. It is even used to end questions because the question mark isn't used. First, let's look at how to express the existence of people and animals. We're talking about sentences that begin with there is a nani-nani. As we said earlier, we use the verb imasu to express the existence of people and animals. Please feel free to repeat after me as I say in Japanese to give yourself some practice. To say there is a man, in Japanese we say otoko no hito ga imasu. Otoko no hito ga imasu. Otoko no hito means man. Literally, it means a man exists. We use the particle ga instead of wa. Whereas wa expresses topic, ga expresses subject, meaning that it is the man or the otoko no hito that exists. To say there is a cat over there, in Japanese that is, asoko ni neko ga imasu. Asoko ni neko ga imasu. Asoko, or the location over there, is typically said first, followed by the particle ni, which denotes location of a thing or person. Then it is followed by what exists, which is the cat, then the subject particle ga, and then the verb imas. Asoko ni neko ga imasu. Asoko ni neko ga imasu. Do you remember our past lesson on counters? Remember that we insert the quantity just before the verb, which in this case is imasu. How do you say there's one infant or akachan? Akachan ga hitori imasu. Akachan ga hitori imasu. How do you say there are two teachers or sensei? Sensei ga futari imasu. Sensei ga futari imasu. How do you say there are four children or kodomo? Kodomo ga 4人います. Kodomo ga 4人います. How do you say there's one cat or neko? Neko ga 1匹います. Neko ga 1匹います. How do you say there are two dogs or inu? Inu ga 2匹います. Inu ga 2匹います. How do you say there are 6 fish or sakana? Sakana ga 6匹います. Sakana ga 6匹います. Next, we look at how location of people and animals is expressed. We're talking about sentences that typically start off with a person or animal that exists. To say, I am here, in Japanese that would be, Watashi wa koko ni imasu. Watashi wa koko ni imasu. This time we use a topic particle wa for watashi. Let's talk about me. As for me, I am here. The location where the person or animal exists is indicated by the particle ni. Remember, when you have the verb imasu or arimasu, the location of existence of a thing or person takes the particle ni. Mom is at home. Let's talk about mom. As for mom, she's at home. In Japanese, that would be Haha wa uchi ni imasu. Haha wa uchi ni imasu. The dog is on the sofa. Let's talk about the dog. As for the dog, it is on top of the sofa. In Japanese, we say, Inu wa sofa no ue ni imasu. Inu wa sofa no ue ni imasu. You are in my heart. Let's talk about you. As for you, you are in my heart. In Japanese, Kimi wa boku no kokoro no naka ni imasu. Kimi wa boku no kokoro no naka ni imasu. Boku no kokoro no naka means the inside of the heart of me, or inside my heart. To indicate possession of people and animals, A has or owns B, we use the sentence construction A wa B ga imasu. A wa B ga imasu. Let's talk about A. As for A, B exists. In other words, A has or owns B. To say, I have a girlfriend, in Japanese, that is, Watashi wa girlfriendo ga imasu. Watashi wa girlfriendo ga imasu. Let's talk about me. As for me, a girlfriend exists. To say, she has children, in Japanese, that is, Kanojo wa kodomo tachi ga imasu. Kanojo wa kodomo tachi ga imasu. Let's talk about her. As for her, children exist. And as before, we can always add the quantity by putting it just before the verb. To say, she has 3 children, in Japanese, that is, Kanojo wa kodomo tachi ga 3人います. Kanojo wa kodomo tachi ga 3人います. Let's talk about her. As for her, children exist, 3 of them. Mary has a little lamb. In Japanese, that is, Mary wa kohitsuji ga imasu. Mary wa kohitsuji ga imasu. Let's talk about Mary. As for Mary, a little lamb exists. To say Mary has many friends, in Japanese, that is, Mary wa takusan no tomodachi ga imasu. Mary wa takusan no tomodachi ga imasu. Now, let's take a look at the second verb, arimasu, which is used to denote the existence of things and plants. Now let's look at the same concepts using the verb arimasu, which is used to describe the existence of non-living things as well as plants, which are living, but uses the verb arimasu to describe their existence. To say there is a car, in Japanese we say, kuruma ga arimasu. Kuruma ga arimasu. Again, when the sentence starts off with there is or there are, we say the thing that exists followed by the particle ga, then ending with the verb arimasu. To say there is money, in Japanese, okane ga arimasu. Okane ga arimasu. As before, we can also add quantities by putting the quantity with its proper counter just before the verb arimasu. To say there are 2 pairs of socks, in Japanese, that is, kutsushita ga nisoku arimasu. Kutsushita ga nisoku arimasu. If you remember in our lesson on counters, the counter for socks is soku. Literally, the whole sentence means there are 2 pairs of socks that exist. To say there are 3 cars, in Japanese we say, kuruma ga 3 dai arimasu. Kuruma ga 3 dai arimasu. Dai is the counter for machines, including cars. Literally, it means there are 3 cars that exist. To say there are 6 books, in Japanese, that is, hon ga 6冊 arimasu. Hon ga 6冊 arimasu. Same as before, with the verbs imasu and arimasu, the location of the thing that exists takes the particle ni. For sentences that begin with there is nani nani in the nani nani, the location is preferably said first. To say there is money inside the wallet, in Japanese, we say the location first, saifu no naka, followed by the particle ni, then what exists is said next, okane, followed by the particle ga. Okane ga, then the verb arimasu. Saifu no naka ni okane ga arimasu. Saifu no naka ni okane ga arimasu. To say there is a tree in the garden, we say niwa ni, which is the location and preferably said first. Then what exists, ki ga, then the verb arimasu. Niwa ni ki ga arimasu. Niwa ni ki ga arimasu. In the garden, the tree exists. However, to say the tree is in the garden, we start by saying what exists, which is the tree, or ki, followed by the topic particle wa. Let's talk about the tree. Then the location, niwa ni. Then the verb arimasu. Ki wa niwa ni arimasu literally means let's talk about the tree. As for the tree, it exists in the garden. Ki wa niwa ni arimasu. Ki wa niwa ni arimasu. The money is inside the wallet. A slightly different way of saying the earlier sentence that there is money inside the wallet. But in the sentence construction, in Japanese, we say, okane wa saifu no naka ni arimasu. Okane wa saifu no naka ni arimasu. Let's talk about the money. As for the money, it's inside the wallet. We can also use arimasu to express possession of things. Things here include plants. In this construction, the owner takes the particle wa, and what is owned takes the particle ga, and we end with the verb arimasu. To say, I have money, in Japanese, that is, watashi wa okane ga arimasu. Watashi wa okane ga arimasu. He has a bicycle. In Japanese, kare wa jitensha ga arimasu. Kare wa jitensha ga arimasu. We can also use the verb arimasu to express the parts of a whole, using the pattern whole wa part ga arimasu. To say, computers have memory chips, in Japanese, that is, konpyuta wa memory chip ga arimasu. Konpyuta wa memory chip ga arimasu. Birds have wings. Tori wa tsubasa ga arimasu. Tori wa tsubasa ga arimasu. Literally, it means let's talk about birds. As for birds, wings exist. Or in other words, birds have wings. Last example, and this is very true. Everyone has problems. In Japanese, minna wa 悩みがあります。みんなは悩みがあります。The last thing we point out about arimas is that when what exists is an event, the location of the event takes the particle de and not ni. For example, the sentence, there is a party at home. Party is an event, so the location of the event, which is at home, takes the particle de. In Japanese, we say, uchi de party ga arimasu. Uchi de party ga arimasu. Uchi takes the particle de. Next example, there is a meeting at the office. Meeting is an event. Hence, in Japanese, we say, ofisu de kaigi ga arimasu. Ofisu de kaigi ga arimasu. Here are other examples of events. A tournament or shiai. Shiai. Trainings or trainingu. Trainingu. Seminars or seminar. Seminar. A class or jugyo. Jugyo. A fire or kaji. Kaji. An earthquake or jishin. Jishin. Or even war or senso. Senso. Here's another example. Next week, there is a class here. In Japanese, we say, 来週ここで授業があります。来週ここで授業があります。We can also use the verb arimas to denote the existence of immediate family members. We said earlier that the existence of people uses the verb imas, but this is an exception. The context here is that of having that family member as opposed to not having. Again, this is limited to very close family members. For example, to say, we have a son, in Japanese we can say using arimas, 私たちは息子があります。私たちは息子があります。私たちは息子がいます is of course also correct, but using arimas emphasizes that we have a son as opposed to not having one. To say, I have a wife using arimas, I can say, 私は妻があります。私は妻があります。Arimas can also be used for husband or shujin, kodomo or child, daughter or musume, brother or ani for the elder one and ototo for the younger one, sister or ane for the older and imoto for the younger, and other close family members. The verbs imas and arimas conjugate into the negative and past tenses. Let's examine them. Note that imas and arimas conjugate into the negative and past tenses. Let's look at imas first. The negative for imas is imasen. Imasen, and it means not exist. Past tense of imas is imashita. Imashita, and it means existed. Past tense of imasen is imasen deshita. Imasen deshita, and it means did not exist. Let's demonstrate these tenses in sentences. Sensei wa imasu. Sensei wa imasu. The teacher is here. Sensei wa imasen. Sensei wa imasen. The teacher is not here. Sensei wa imashita. Sensei wa imashita. The teacher was here. Sensei wa imasen deshita. Sensei wa imasen deshita. The teacher wasn't here. The translation for here, which is koko ni, is implied in all the sentences. Let's see how arimas conjugates. The negative is arimasen. Arimasen, which means not exist. Past tense of arimas is arimashita. Arimashita, which means existed. And the past tense of arimasen is arimasen deshita. Arimasen deshita, which means did not exist. Let's look at sample sentences that illustrate these conjugations. Okane ga arimasu. Okane ga arimasu. It means I have money. The watashi wa here is implied. Remember that watashi wa is the default. Watashi wa okane ga arimasu. I have money. Okane wa arimasen. Okane wa arimasen means I have no money. Now, when something negative is said in Japanese, Japanese prefer to hear the particle wa. That's why we use wa instead of ga. However, if you said watashi wa okane ga arimasen, then that would also be correct, as the wa in watashi wa satisfies the requirement to say wa. Okane ga arimashita. Okane ga arimashita. I had money. Okane wa arimasen deshita. Okane wa arimasen deshita. I did not have money. So to summarize, we learned to use the verb imasu to denote the existence, location, and possession of people and animals. We learned how to use the verb arimasu to denote the existence, location, and possession of things, plants, and close family members. We also demonstrated the use of arimasu to denote parts of a whole and to express the location of an event that exists. And here are the main takeaways. What exists, whether people, animals, plants, or things, typically takes the particle ga when the sentence construction starts off with there is nani nani or there are nani nani. When the sentence construction is A is in the B, where B is a location, then we use the particle wa for A, so that the sentence construction is A wa B ni arimasu. We also looked at the construction to show possession. A owns B. A wa B ga imasu, for ownership of people and animals, and A wa B ga arimasu, for ownership of things, plants, and close family members. To say that B is part of A, we say A wa B ga arimasu. The location of where something is found typically takes the particle ni. However, if what exists is an event, the location of the event takes the particle de. And lastly, imasu and arimasu conjugate into the negative and past tenses. And that ends our lesson on the verbs of existence, imasu and arimasu. I hope you learned lots of new things today, and more importantly, that you had fun. I look forward to having you join me in the next lesson. If you're serious about becoming fluent in Japanese, it's important to practice daily, learn grammar, and build up vocabulary. My whole course is designed to give you a strong basic foundation in the Japanese language that you can build solidly on. So please click like, share, or subscribe, and watch the next video in the series. 日本語の勉強に頑張ってください。じゃあ、またね。